At dawn on April 20th, 2012, Marta Sanchez, a 41-year-old investigative journalist known for her tireless work on unsolved mysteries, was sorting through belongings in her family's old house on a quiet outskirts of Madrid. The house, with its faded walls and wind-whispering trees, was full of memories, especially of her younger brother, Javier, who had disappeared a quarter of a century ago. The morning was cool, and a thin layer of dust covered the furniture like a shroud of a long-forgotten time. Marta was there to tidy up her father's inheritance and perhaps find some closure to the long-standing family tragedy. It was then, in the dusty twilight of the attic, among mountains of old books and broken toys, that her hand came across something hard and familiar. It was Javier's old-school diary. Its cover had yellowed with age, and the pages were swollen with moisture. At first, Marta thought it was just a childhood trinket left over from that sad time, but as she began to flip through the yellowed pages, her heart began to beat faster. The diary was full not only of children's entries, but also of recurring drawings of a strange symbol that Javier drew whenever he was scared. Between the pages lay a roughly drawn but surprisingly detailed plan. What she found had been there for 25 years, hidden from prying eyes. The diary was in perfect condition. The secrets were waiting to be revealed. But what was most disturbing was that the find hinted at a much larger and more complex truth than the one the police accepted 25 years ago. This discovery would forever change the long-standing mystery that haunted the Sanchez family and the quiet neighborhood where it lived. Marta had no idea that this ordinary morning would become the most amazing day of her life. What was to be discovered had remained hidden for decades, awaiting this moment. In a few minutes, the 2.5-decade mystery would finally be revealed. Madrid would never be the same after this discovery. It was the end of summer in 1987. The sun was still caressing the surroundings of Madrid with its warm rays, and life in the suburbs flowed leisurely. Javier Sanchez, an 8-year-old boy with an infectious smile and eyes burning with curiosity, spent his days exploring every corner of his yard. His older sister, Marta, then a 16-year-old girl just beginning to discover the adult world, often looked after him. Their lives were simple and full of innocent joys until one day everything changed. On that fateful day, August 23, 1987, Javier was playing with his favorite toy car, parked next to the old stone wall that separated their yard from the neighbor's abandoned lot. He was immersed in his childhood fantasies, imagining himself as a great racer overcoming sand dunes. Marta was reading a book on the porch, enjoying the silence and a rare moment of peace. The parents were inside doing ordinary household chores. It was an ordinary day with nothing to foreshadow trouble. But when Marta looked up to call Javier for dinner, he was nowhere to be found. The toy car lay where he had left it, but the boy himself had disappeared. Initial anxiety quickly turned into panic. The parents and Marta searched every corner of the house and yard, then expanded the search to neighboring streets. The police were called and a large-scale investigation began. Search teams combed every square meter, but there was not a single trace, not the slightest hint. Javier disappeared without a trace, as if he had vanished into thin air. Questions hung in the air, but there were no answers. Weeks passed, then months, and the Javier Sanchez case remained unsolved. The police, having exhausted all their resources, were forced to close it, classifying it as hopeless for the Sanchez family. This was not just the closure of a case, it was the closure of hope. Grief and guilt settled in their house like uninvited guests. Marta, then still a teenager, felt particularly devastated. She constantly wondered, what happened to her little brother, and why couldn't anyone find him? This question haunted her all her life, prompting her to become an investigative journalist to give a voice to those who had lost it. As the years turned into decades, the mystery of Javier faded into the background for most people. But for the family, it remained an unhealed wound. The house, once filled with children's laughter, was now shrouded in silence. Marta's parents became shadows of themselves. Their lives were marked by the constant pain of loss. The secret was deeply buried, and it seemed that no one would ever know the truth. Javier, as it turned out, was not kidnapped. He accidentally stumbled upon a hidden entrance to an underground refuge, used by a local group that conducted initiation rituals based on medieval legends. It was not an evil sect, but rather a closed community that believed in the need for solitude and trials to achieve inner strength. They promised protection and wisdom, but their methods were unorthodox. Newcomers, who were called initiates, were kept in the refuge until they proved their courage and passed a series of tests, sometimes for days or even weeks. Javier, being a child, got lost in the maze of tunnels and accidentally ended up in this refuge. When the group discovered Javier, they did not harm him, but, fearing the outside world and possible exposure of their secret rites, they made the tragic decision to keep him inside. They did not want to harm the child, but their fear of discovery was stronger. They took care of him, taught him their rituals and traditions, but did not allow him to leave because he knew their secret. Their leader, a charismatic but misguided person named Dominga, convinced them that this was for the common good. Over time, they began to believe that Javier was part of their destiny, and his presence served as a kind of test for their own faith and resilience. It was their beliefs, though seemingly well-intentioned, that led to the boy being held captive, isolated from the world that was looking for him. This incident, which became a tragic mistake, spawned a deep-rooted secret that Dominga and the other members of the community who held him captive vowed to keep in order to protect their way of life. After 25 years of agonizing waiting and relentless questions, the truth began to slowly seep to the surface. The revealing figure was Marta herself, who could not come to terms with the uncertainty. She returned to her childhood home to say goodbye to the past, but instead found the key to unraveling it. Javier's diary, with all his childhood drawings and symbols, became her guide. Studying the diary, Marta discovered that the recurring symbol that Javier drew when he felt scared was not just a random scribble. It was a symbol that appeared in ancient manuscripts associated with local legends and tales of secret societies. This symbol, which Javier had seen somewhere in the house, perhaps shortly before his disappearance, became Marta's first real clue. The plan found in the diary indicated a weak spot in the basement, a weakened slab. With a pounding heart, Marta pushed aside the old stone slab. Underneath it opened a narrow, dark passage leading down to a forgotten basement. The air was humid and heavy, smelling of earth and old wood. She went down cautiously, stepping on a shaky ladder. By the light of a flashlight, her eyes adjusted to the twilight, and what she saw surprised her. It was not a creepy crypt, as she might have imagined, but rather a refuge that held a much more complex story. Instead of creepy traces, Marta found subtle clues: an old toy car partially covered in dust, and a child's shoe lying in the corner. On the walls were scratches, shallow but numerous, as if someone had tried to get out. In a niche carved into the wall stood an old improvised altar on which lay rag dolls, beads, and clippings from old newspapers telling of other disappearances in the area. These disappearances had previously been attributed to accidents or runaways, but now they took on a completely different meaning. Marta realized that these items were evidence of life, not death, and that Javier may not have been the only one trapped in this place. She felt a connection between him and the other children mentioned in the newspapers, which made this discovery even more disturbing. Her connection to the original event was not just by blood but also professional. As an investigative journalist, Marta was trained to look for hidden truths, to piece together fragments of information. She carried the burden of knowledge that could forever change the lives of many people. The reasons why the truth was coming out now were simple. Marta found it, and she was ready to reveal it to the world, despite the possible risks. It was her duty to Javier and to all those who might be connected to this mystery. As Marta descended into the depths of the basement, following the symbols engraved on the walls that matched those in Javier's diary, she realized that her brother had not been kidnapped by a malicious criminal. He had been trapped. The underground refuge she found was part of a complex system of tunnels used by a local community. This community, as Marta now suspected, conducted rituals based on ancient legends. Their beliefs were connected with purification and spiritual growth through isolation and trials. They believed that these rituals brought protection and wisdom, but to the outside world, they remained a mystery. On the walls of the tunnels, illuminated by the dim light of her flashlight, Marta saw even more symbols. They were engraved with care. Some were fresh, others erased by time. At the end of one of the longest tunnels, Marta came across a small room. There she found evidence that confirmed her worst suspicions, but also the problem, which seemed to serve as a living area, were a homemade bed, a rough table, and several clay pots. On one of the walls hung drawings that Javier had drawn. These were the same symbols from his diary, but also images of everyday life in this underground world. In some drawings, Javier was depicted next to other children, as well as adults who seemed to be members of the community. This was a complete revelation of the truth. Javier had not simply disappeared. He had been absorbed by this secret society. They probably discovered him when he was exploring the basement and, instead of returning him to his family, decided to keep him. They promised him protection and wisdom, but in return, he lost his freedom. In the room, Marta also found an old, faded note, written in Javier's handwriting. It said, "I have not forgotten, I am waiting. The symbol our key period." These words shook Marta to the core. As Marta gathered evidence, neighbors began to tell of disturbing sounds coming from the abandoned basement on nights of the full moon. These were not just rumors, but real evidence that now took on a new ominous meaning. Old grievances in the area began to surface, disagreements between families, secrets of the neighboring monastery's nun, and rumors of nightly cults held in the local church. All this intertwined with Javier's mystery, creating a complex web of secrets and deceptions. Marta emerged from the basement. Her mind was racing with shocking discoveries. The truth about her brother's fate was not only tragic but also incredibly complex. Javier was not the victim of a criminal, but rather a hostage to misguided beliefs. His life had been spared, but his freedom had been taken away. After gathering all the evidence, Marta faced a dilemma. To reveal the truth meant not only revealing Javier's location, but also exposing the secret society that had been hiding for many decades. This could lead to new dangers, both for her and for Javier himself, but silence was not an option. Marta used her journalistic skills to begin her own investigation, relying on information from Javier's diary and from the basement. She discovered that the society known as the Keepers of the Ancient Ways was based on false notions of salvation and isolation. Their leader, Dominga, had died several years ago, and without his charismatic leadership, the group had weakened. Many of the former members had left the community, some with a sense of guilt for what they had done. Marta decided to act cautiously. She contacted former members of the community who felt remorse and convinced them to cooperate. Together, they developed a plan to find Javier and free others who may have been detained. It turned out that Javier, now a grown man, was in another, more remote refuge which was used by the same group. He was alive, but his life had been completely changed by years of isolation. He was part of their world, but he never forgot his past home. When Marta finally met Javier, it was an emotional reunion. He recognized his sister, although he was amazed by her appearance. He told her about his life in isolation, how he survived, and the hope he always cherished, to return home. The community that held him was not malicious but was mistaken. They believed they were acting for the good, protecting him from the perceived dangers of the outside world, but they deprived him of the life he should have lived. The consequences of the revelation were profound. The community was dissolved, and its members were held accountable. Some of them were convicted of illegal imprisonment, but, given their motives and lack of malice, the punishments were relatively lenient. Society was shocked but also surprised that such a group could exist unnoticed for so many years. The Sanchez family finally found peace, although the trauma of the past years remained. Javier began a slow and difficult process of adapting to the outside world, which had changed so much after the revelation of the truth. Life changed for everyone. Javier, although alive, faced enormous difficulties in adapting to a world he did not know. He relearned how to use modern technology, understand cultural changes, and interact with people who did not share his unique experience. Marta became his main support, helping him reconnect with society and heal from the psychological trauma inflicted by years of isolation. He found solace in drawing, creating complex works of art that reflected his inner world and his struggle to find his place in a new reality. The legacy of the secret society, although not malicious in its intentions, left a deep mark on the area. It served as a reminder of how beliefs, if taken to extremes, can lead to unintended tragedies. Javier's story became a parable of the resilience of the human spirit, the strength of family ties, and the importance of never losing hope. It also became a warning about the dangers of blind faith and the importance of questioning power and authority. Marta continued her work as a journalist, but now with an even greater sense of purpose. She used her experience to cover other cases where people were deprived of their liberty or unfairly forgotten. Every time she wrote, she thought of Javier and the lessons she had learned from his story. And although the past will never be completely erased, her family finally found peace, and the old house, once filled with shadows, was now filled with hope for the future. This house, which once held so much pain, now became a symbol of resilience and redemption.